Okay. Let me get the lighting right a little bit better. Ooh. All right. A little more light here. Oh, it's a little bright. All righty. Okay. That just took 30 seconds. How are you guys all doing tonight? Tonight we are gonna. Hey Tracy. Tonight we're actually gonna be doing what I like to call bebop exploration. So we're going to be dealing with the 5 chord again. I know we the last 2 weeks. This is week 20, by the way, which is blows my mind. Um, the last 2 weeks, we went over diminished stuff, and that really diminished really relates to the 5 chord. I want to show you guys a little bit different way to explore the 5 chord. That's why it's called bebop exploration. And you can do this on any type of chord. I'm gonna do it over the 5 chord tonight, and then next week I thought of a really fun thing. I think we're gonna write a line together, so it'll be super interactive. Maybe I'll put a little skeleton kind of line together, and then we'll build it out, and I'll play different things, and you guys can give me feedback in the chat, or you can just follow along and just kind of write down what we figure out. So that's next week. Sorry about my voice and everything tonight. I've been dealing with some stuff, but I feel fine and it's all good. Um, so okay, so first we're gonna start with just bebop, the just some bebop language diatonically. So I recommend your book along with the videos, Hammers at Home. Awesome. Oh, thank you so much for buying the book, Tracy. I really appreciate it, the support, and I'm glad you're getting a lot out of it. I plan on maybe making updates to the book. I'm looking over here like I'm just staring at your chat. So I'm looking at you like you're here. So I might make some updates on that book and some kind of progressions to how I think it should be taught. So if there are any updates, you're already like, since you bought the book, you're going to get the updates and like play alongs and anything I decide to do with it. So thank you again for your support. So let's jump into this bebop exploration. So first we're going to start out, we're going to just play in G7. So F7 concert, G7 on the tenor, and that's D7 on alto or any E flat instrument. And so let's talk about what a G7 chord scale is. The chord, 1, 3, 5, 7 is G, B, D, and then you get that F natural, which gives it that unique sound. Right? You get that distinct dominant sound, and then the chord scale of it is basically G to F, right? With no sharps or flats, right? Right. So when I say we're going to think of diatonic ideas. We're not going to use the quote unquote bebop scale yet. We're not going to use the half step between F and G. We're not using this. Right? So we're not using that right now. We're just going to do diatonic stuff. And the reason for this is that there's a lot of really cool things you can do. And I'm going to show you some cool things you can do with just the scale and make it sound like a G7 without having to use enclosures. Well, not enclosures that aren't like out of the key, right? But you can use diatonic enclosures, you can use pivots, you can use different jumps, and you can still make it sound really hip and not play any alterations. And that's what today's focus is going to be. I've been talking a lot to some friends, and I think having a hold of this type of language without having to alter anything is also very, very important. Making melodies without alterations is really important. Plus, it gives you a really good starting point for your ears to hear the quote unquote simple stuff, which we can go on about, like, is this really that simple? Because you can make it super complex if you want to, and stay diatonically. I've heard people do it. It's amazing to watch and hear people do it. So So let's talk about just the exploration part. So I'm just going to kind of play some ideas in G7. I'm not going to try to resolve to C major. I'm not going to try to resolve. So when you're doing this, this is nice to warm up on. It helps your ears kind of wake up a little bit, or maybe end a session like this where you're kind of free blowing and you're just kind of exploring this space, and do it for like 5 or 10 minutes, and you'll be surprised if you do this consistently how you start finding little pathways that make sense um, in language, and you don't have to do this with time. You can just explore. So I'm going to start by just playing some stuff and exploring different sounds and trying to keep it in G7 the whole time, just diatonic. And if I make, like, if I put any alterations in there, I might, I'll be like, yeah, I played a note outside those seven that we talked about. Okay, so here we go. So I'm just gonna start playing. So here it is. Right? That was I didn't use any alterations. I just was jumping around using different pivots and things like that. So let's try something else. Right? Not as clean, but still just exploring. So, and if you do something that you like, explore that a little bit. So I like the way I started that. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a diatonic enclosure around the third, so B or A concert, and then I'm doing a triplet figure. So I'm going B, which is three, and I'm going 3 5 7 9. So I'm hitting that A up top, or G concert. So ba ba bo do do ba, right? So what if I wanted to do that around each chord tone? So maybe I'll do it around the G now, or the F concert. Now I'll do it around the third again. Now I'll do it around the fifth. Right? You don't really want to necessarily land on that C up there, because that's that 11, which the 11 kind of feels unresolved, over a dominant chord, and a major. But that's okay if you're just using it as a passing tone. It's all good. And then let's do it around the seventh. That's a nice one. And it kind of brings you uh get opens up a lot of doors, but that's way up in all the upper extensions. So sometimes might take some time to feel where that's going, like if you wanted to maybe lead into it. Right? So I just use that little enclosure I just kind of found out from the bebop exploration. And once you get the diatonic ideas flowing, then maybe add in like that extra note, like the bebop scale note, right? So instead of using just this scale, now I'm going to use the entire bebop scale. All right. And so now I can try a little. Now you might hear a little bit different ideas, because I'm allowed to add one note to everything I just did, but you might hear the same kind of ideas, right? Right? So just adding that one note in can spice things up a little bit, um, and then spend some time there. Like, I don't want to just practice in front of you guys, so I don't want to really spend time. But you can explore a lot. You don't have to make it all scale stuff. Like, you can start jumping around, right? Okay, I kind of resolved to C there, but I still ended on G. So, but it sounded like I resolved. Try not to resolve these lines. It's very difficult to not want to resolve. Eventually, you want to resolve into the major key that you're going into. Another benefit of doing this, especially in the keys that you find that are really difficult for you, another benefit is you're getting better at hearing these different lines in different keys. So if I were to do the same thing, like in, let's say, D concert, which is E7, or D7, or D7 concert or E7 on tenor, I'm already creating different lines in my head. So if I this is in G7 on the alt on excuse me on the alto on the tenor, right? So something like that, right? Now if I play that in E7, I kind of already hear that. Right, so similar. I'm already starting to hear the way that these shapes are feeling, the way that I'm hearing the shapes, the way that I'm hearing the pivots. So you can use this to explore, like start in an easier key for you, and then start exploring. If you like an idea, write it down. I'm a big proponent of, I have like writing stuff right here. I have an iPad I write on. I have manuscript paper. Write these ideas down. Try to write down two or three or four or even 5 to 10 every single day of little pieces of language that you really like that you've come up with, because they start carrying over each day and everything becomes so much more familiar. After you explore with just the bebop scale, then maybe get into other notes, right? Other alterations. Um, but be sure you're thinking about the alterations you're using. Don't just willy-nilly like just throw in alterations and not know what you're doing, not having the intent. There's a really good video about Bill Evans is talking to, I think he's being interviewed by his brother, and it's on YouTube. I wish I had like a link. I didn't think I'd be talking about this tonight, but maybe I'll try to link this below. But I believe the word he uses is called approximation, and a lot of people approximate like what they're going to do. They don't have the full intent of what they're doing. They just they this is like a, the saxophone is a dangerous instrument. It's like a sports car, right? We can move our fingers super fast, but if you don't know what you're doing with the super fast stuff you're doing, like does it really matter, right? Is the intent there? Are you just approximating? And it's a really cool video. You should check it out. I mean, if you type in Bill Evans approximation, I bet it'll come up. It's a black and white video, and he speaks so eloquently about it, and it's really really powerful. But where I was going with that is, if you're like, let's say we're on G7, and let's say I want to use a flat 9 sound over G7. I want to intentionally make that flat 9 sound. And so maybe it starts out like this, right? And I'll give a little like eyebrow raise on the flat 9, right? So here's the flat 9 sound, right? So I resolve there to the C, but right, I kind of resolved, but that sound, like that sound was definitely out. Everything was way different than what I just did. I've been basically just doing this. Right? So there's that flat 9. So if I want to add in that sound, if I want to add in, you know, uh, a flat 13 sound, um, that's you want to do it with intention, right? If you want to add in the tritone sound, so what's the tritone of G7, right? It's D flat or C sharp 7. So if you want to add in those those colors, then make sure it's intentional, right? If you're starting out doing this, right? So like I intentionally did a tritone sub in there. It was a simple idea, but I'm intentionally using that. And that's what this is all about. Like the bebop, and seeing how this bebop exploration is seeing how you can link certain ideas to another and doing it with a purpose, and really, when you get a line you really like that sounds super hip, that you love, don't worry about if other people love it. If you love it, and it speaks to how you want to sound, then write it down, and that's when you start, turn the metronome on and start shedding that stuff, like, and get it down super fast, and so you have it and start playing in all different keys. But this exploration process should be really relaxed and really intentional, and don't worry about, like, sounding good right away. Like this, I've been trying to figure some of this stuff out for like the better part of a year or two. um, with these different sounds, you know. Now there are quote unquote like rules. The only rule, I mean, all the rules are kind of bendable, right? They're like there are no wrong notes. I think I've probably said that a bunch on this live stream, right? That Miles said that there are no wrong notes. There are technically some rules. You want to try to land like on the strong beats or on the down beats of each bar. You want to try to keep it to chord tones, right? You want to keep it on the 1, 3, 5, and 7, you know, 9 as well. But you can also be doing passing tones and enclosures on on those downbeats, which is totally fine. Like I have this one line. I think I figured out. Let me see if I remember it. It's been a while. Right. So like there's a part where I go right. I'm playing an E flat on a downbeat, which is technically, I guess, against the rules. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But I'm using it as an enclosure, and then I land on the 5. So I'm going right. So I'm it's okay if you go out, but some of those things, when you end up going out like that and playing it on the stronger beats, it actually is what perks people's ears up, right? Like that sounds a lot different than right. But if you hear this, right? So it adds a little bit of a different flavor to it. And then you also just now you literally have two pieces of language. You can choose to do the enclosure that has the alterations in it, or you can choose to not do the enclosure, right? It's all language. It's all how do you want to express yourself in that moment? Do you hear the rhythm section kind of playing more alterations on that 5 chord? Maybe you want to use it then. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff. Does anybody have any questions? First off, if so, if you're watching this, you know, in the in the future, feel free to comment on it because I'll always check the comments and answer anything. Or what I'll do is I'll answer it the next week. But but you can go a lot of different directions with this whole bebop exploration. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be for just 5 chords. Let's say you're having difficulty on minor 7 flat 5 chords, right? Like a G minor 7 flat 5, or a, you know, or any chord you feel like you have a tune you're learning and you're like, wow, I get to this E flat minor 7 flat 5 and I just can't do anything with it. Explore that chord, you know, just play the 1, 3, 5, 7, make a shape out of it, right? Um, and it could be that simple. It can be as simple as like, let me just make a shape and see how that shape feels. Um, Maybe pick an interval that you like, a sixth. I'm just throwing that out there. So if I want to do a sixth over a G7 chord, you know, I do. So I'm like, okay, that sounds cool. Right. So I went sixth on the way down when after I played a little bit of a line. And I technically, if you wanted to think I resolved to the third of the C, I did, or I can say, all right, I was still on the 13, the natural 13th of the G, and just was going to lead that line into somewhere else. So like I said, try not to resolve the line so you keep your mind and your ear in this key center for as long as possible. And it's okay if you get out of the key center within like 4 to 6 notes the first time you do this. Like it takes a long time to develop this stream of consciousness of where these lines can go, and I'm still exploring that. I think it's part of the fun of playing. Um, so that's pretty much the lesson for today. Start diatonic, right? So start this bebop exploration in a diatonic fashion. Also, if you like something that you played, right? So if you liked playing those six, then maybe sit on those six for a bit and feel it. Or like I said, if you find a rhythmic idea that you like I did this before. This was the example from earlier where I kind of liked right? So ba bo do bo ba ba. So I like that rhythm. It's just 2/8 and then a triplet. Ba bo ba bo ba ba. And then I'm just hitting like let's say a quarter note on beat 3. You know, maybe you make that a part of your exploration. You know, you go right? So it can be you're exploring that, and maybe you end up inverting that, right? So maybe you go like something like this. So it'd be right. So that was from the 13 down, because now I'm starting. If this is the 7, 9, 11, 13, I got to enclose the top of it and invert it. So this is how you explore, right? Right. Actually, I did that one wrong. That was just a another diatonic S seventh. But let's go from the. Let's see. Okay, so now we got to go. Right, that was ending on the 5, and then we'll end on the 3 now. Uh, and let's end on the 1 now. Right. Right. So you can start getting these little pieces. Like this is I'd never explored that until tonight, right? I just literally explored that rhythm and inverting it and playing it ascending, playing it descending. You can 5 to 10 minutes goes by super fast. I mean, I've been talking and playing a little bit for 21 minutes at this point, which is crazy. Some of these live streams go by so fast. Um, so that's kind of the ways to kind of flip these things and think about ideas. You might already have some really great ideas that you just need to maybe you need to invert them, right? Maybe you need to start them slightly different. See different ways you can approach it, right? Because you can kind of it's endless, right? This whole thing is endless. This bebop exploration will be endless. Your musical journey will be endless, and we will all of us will never be able to play all of it, right? Which is kind of cool in a sense. So that's the gist of it. Try this bebop exploration for the next week. Next week we're going to jump into doing we're going to be doing like building a line from scratch. Like most of you have probably seen, I have a lot of 2/5s up on Instagram and on YouTube, 2/5s of the day, and it's been a really fun journey. And I'm writing more, and I'm writing like I have enough material for like another book. I might just put like 100 licks in a book and then eventually sell it. I don't know. I have no clue. Make it donation based. I don't even know. I don't know where I'm going with it, but I thought it would be cool to basically have a skeleton of a line, and then we build it together. You guys feedback, whatever, and and then go from there, and then see what line we come up with, and I'll have it written on the iPad, and I'll show you. I wish there was a way I could write it live on the screen with you guys. I need to figure that out. And anyways, so that's the idea for next week. So please please tune in for that, and please participate if you want. I think it's gonna be really fun. I think it'd be really valuable to start figuring out how to write your own lines and how to hear, like, right? You're hearing these lines. After writing so many lines at this point, I'm starting to write these things. It's really cool, actually. Starting to write these things and like hear them. And I don't even need to play my saxophone or piano. I'm just kind of hearing this stuff and just being able to write it. So it's really powerful, and it's fun to compose these lines and see which different directions you can go, and it really helps with the creative mind. So if you're just looking for something to kind of do that will help your creative mind get like a little bit of a release, try writing a couple lines a day, and and allow yourself to get that creative tension out. So as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight on every Tuesday, 2/5 Tuesday. I may be changing platforms. I might start doing these on Instagram. I'm not quite sure yet how I want to run this, but right now YouTube's been easy to do, so I will try to do that. And but I might maybe I'll dual. I don't know if I can do it at the same time, but maybe I can. So that's it. And as always, I will see you next week. Just remember, always positive, always progressing. Until next time, later.